All right. Hey, folks. Welcome to our third office hours webinar for BrainHQ. We're so glad that you could be here today. My name is Stephanie. I'm a member of our customer delight team. And with me today hosting is also going to be Henry. Henry, you want to say hi?
Hey, folks. Thanks for joining today. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. So our goal for our office hours webinar series is to show off a specific feature or two, and then we will open the floor and answer any questions that you might have about those features. So today's topic is a highly requested one. We are today going to be doing a deep dive into the personal trainer within BrainHQ. So what's going to happen is Henry and I are going to walk you through the different features of the personal trainer, and then we will pivot to taking questions from the audience. So if at any point you'd like to ask a question about the personal trainer, all you need to do is click the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel, and then a new window should pop up. Go ahead and type in your questions there, and then Henry and I are going to do our best to answer as many of those as we can. Now, there are a lot more of you in the audience than we expected, which is great, but that also means that we likely won't be able to answer every question today. Don't fret, though. You can send any follow-up questions to support@brainhq.com. And either myself or one of our other members of our support team will get back to you pretty quickly. We also have a support site, which you can find at support.brainhq.com, and that will have answers to a lot of common questions. And we have a whole section of that site dedicated to the personal trainer, in fact. Now, the other thing that I wanted to note is that today's webinar is being recorded, and it will get posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you'd like to be notified when that video goes live, you can go to youtube.com/brainhq and subscribe there in order to receive a notification. Now, everyone who is registered for this webinar is also going to receive an email sometime next week with any resources that we may mention, but we will also be sure to include a link to that replay. So that's going to happen automatically. So a little bit about me. Hi, like I said, my name is Stephanie. Before working at Posit Science, I was a science communicator and docent at a science museum here in San Francisco. In 2014, I started working for Posit Science as a customer delight specialist. I wear quite a few more hats now than I did when I first started working here 8 years ago, but I'm still answering questions from users like you pretty much every day. Now, my co-host, who already popped in to say hi, is Dr. Henry Monka. Most of you have probably seen him in our previous webinars. Henry earned his PhD in neuroscience at the University of California, San Francisco. That's where he studied brain plasticity with our co-founder, Dr. Michael Merzenich. He's been CEO of Posit Science since 2011. So he and I are going to be tag teaming the demonstration, and he'll mostly be talking about the technical aspects of the personal trainer, and then we will answer any of those questions that you guys might have. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. Let me go ahead and switch over to my demonstration window. So when we are talking about the personal trainer, what does that mean? So, one of the questions that we sometimes get is, hey, can I talk to the personal trainer? I want to know who's scheduling my exercises. The personal trainer is not actually a person. The personal trainer is a feature within BrainHQ that is designed to pick out exercises and then levels within those exercises for you to train with each time you sit down to do your training. So ideally, what it does is it takes the guesswork out of training. You don't need to handpick your exercise and levels. The personal trainer is set up to do that for you. So whenever you log into BrainHQ, you're going to end up on the dashboard like this. The personal trainer is going to be this big button here. And whenever you load the personal trainer, it's going to look at your entire brain training history, including your personal performance on every level of every exercise you've completed. So then based on that training data, the personal trainer is going to select an active set of exercises and levels from those exercises that are going to be the optimal ones for you to work on. So each time you train, the personal trainer will either pick new levels for you to train on, maybe if you're ready to advance to a higher level, or it may ask you to repeat levels that it thinks that you have some room for improvement on. As you continue training, it's going to then retire certain exercises once you've done enough of those levels, and then add new ones to the rotation in order to meet your brain's needs over time. All right, so let's talk about how the personal trainer picks exercises. So when you click this big yellow button that says use personal trainer on the dashboard, it's going to go ahead and load up the personal trainer here. Now the personal trainer is going to select 6 exercises and create what's called a schedule for you. These six exercises are also sometimes called the active set of exercises. So when you first start out using the personal trainer, it's primarily going to queue up attention and brain speed exercises. We can see that here on this account that I'm sharing with you all. This is an account that I created about 2 weeks ago in preparation for the webinar today. We know that these are attention and brain speed exercises because attention exercises are going to be color-coded green, and then the brain speed exercises are going to be color-coded blue. Now, the personal trainer is primarily going to queue those up for you when you're a new user or at the start of your training for 2 reasons. One is that those are generally exercises that are more user-friendly. They are designed for new users, maybe for somebody who hasn't done brain training in some sort of computerized context before. It's a great introduction to the program. Now, the other reason is that brain speed and attention are really foundational to cognition. And actually, Henry, if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit about that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, like you said, it does come up, hey, why do we start with these particular exercises focused on speed and attention? And as you say, that's because speed and attention are so foundational, so core to everything we do with our brain. Attention is important for everything we do with our brain because literally your brain cannot operate on something that comes in through your ears and your eyes unless you pay attention to it. And we've probably all had that experience, right? You know, we're focused on something on the television and someone sitting next to us says something and we don't really hear it because we're paying attention to the TV. So attention is core. If you're going to remember something, if you're going to think about it, if you're going to learn something from it, you have to pay attention to it. So we start with some attention exercises. Speed is equally important. Everything that goes on in your brain works better if your brain processes that information quickly and accurately. And everything that goes on in your brain goes on a little bit worse if your brain is operating slowly and less accurately, or sometimes, as we say at Posit Science, is operating more noisily. So these early speed exercises are designed to get your brain moving quickly and accurately, particularly with regard to things that you see, because then everything that comes later around working memory or long-term memory or executive function or thinking and planning, all are resting on that solid foundation of good speed and good attention. So that's why we start here.
Excellent. Thank you, Henry. So continuing on, looking back at the personal trainer schedule here, like we said, attention and brain speed really foundational to how BrainHQ operates as a whole and to cognition as a whole. So the personal trainer will give you 6 active exercises within a session. So we can see that here. I already did a little training session this morning, so it wants me for my next session to go target tracker, double decision, Hawkeye, eye for detail, visual sweeps, sound sweeps, and then we go back to target tracker again. We're starting to repeat that active set of exercises there. Now, what's going to happen is oftentimes you aren't going to finish all 6 exercises within a session, and that's okay. That's by design. The personal trainer will keep track of where you are, and then you'll be able to start your training right where you had left off, or pick up your training right where you had left off the next time you log in to do your training with the personal trainer. All right, so let's talk about what the actual flow of using the personal trainer looks like. So you can see here our schedule of exercises. The first exercise that I have here is target tracker, and under that we see that it's listed as the 4th level. So whenever you see a level with some sort of numerical attachment to it, like 4th level, 12th level, that means that this is a new level for you that the personal trainer is picking out for you. Now, the other thing that you may see, like under Hawkeye here, it says repeated level. So that means that the personal trainer wants you to go back and repeat that level in order to try and improve your scores for that level. Now, the goal when you're training with a level is to cumulatively earn 10 stars. So when you first train with a level, you're going to earn a certain number of stars. You set a baseline score. You're then immediately going to be asked to replay that level until you earn a total of 10 stars, or if you replay it 5 times. So each time you replay that level, that's going to count towards your weekly goal and to your total number of levels completed on your progress page. So then once you've either reached 10 stars or 5 replays, you're going to see a completion screen. And I actually have an example of that from my training session that I did this morning. Let me go ahead and pivot to that. All right. And so here, after I completed my first exercise from this morning, it took me three replays to get to 10 stars. We can see that here. I've completed 3 of the 8 levels that the personal trainer wanted me to complete for this session. I earned a total of 14 stars. I overshot it, but that's okay. More is always better. And we can also see the outside circle here starts to fill in. It's kind of like a loading bar. And that represents how many levels in a session that we've completed so far. So it's filled up 3/8 of the way. Now, as I continued training, I went on to the next level and I earned several more stars. I earned 10 stars there. So I trained with a new level from Eye for Detail, got 5 stars both times. And now we're up to 5 of the 8 levels that it wants me to complete for the session. Went on ahead to the next exercise that the personal trainer wanted me to train with. And here I got to 7 out of 8 levels. So I'm not quite done with the personal trainer session for today. I earned 10 stars. So that's one play of sound sweeps and then a repeat. Both times I got 5 stars. And then finally, my last exercise this morning was Hawkeye, and I did the 4th level. And I actually overshot my goal for today, and that's okay. So what happened is by default, the personal trainer is going to want you to complete 24 levels per week, and that's going to be across 3 training sessions or 3 sittings. And so 24 divided by 3 is going to be 8. So that's how that 8 levels number comes about when you're putting together your trainer goals. Now, I went ahead and overshot that, but that's okay, because what's going to happen is those 9 levels are going to go towards my total of 24. And we're going to see all that information on a beautiful summary page now that we've completed this session within the personal trainer. So we can see how many different levels we've passed, how many moments we've experienced today. Moments are things like if you are in the top 20, 15, 10, 5% of users who scored highly on an exercise. We can see how many stars I earned this morning, and we can see our total level of exercise towards our weekly goal that we are working on this week. So that's what the personal trainer sort of looks like as you are making your way through on your own. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to my demo screen here. And we are going to talk about how the personal trainer goes about picking levels for you to train with. Whenever you complete an exercise within BrainHQ, the personal trainer decides if it should return it to you again in the future, or if it should instead retire that level. So a level is going to get returned to your schedule if you didn't reach your performance target for that level. So what I mean by performance target, the personal trainer has a goal for you. So typically the personal trainer wants to see you get at least 3 stars on any given level. That's going to tell the personal trainer, hey, I'm ready to move up to the next level. Now, if you haven't scored high enough, that means that the exercise is challenging, which is good. So the personal trainer is likely to return that level to you. If you are getting exercises where you are repeating a lot of the same levels, then it's a good sign that you're training at the right level for your brain. Now, a level can get retired when you've reached or exceeded your performance target for that level. So the personal trainer wants you to advance to a new or more challenging level. So if you've scored high enough consistently, it's not going to want you to repeat that level again. It's below your training threshold.
That's exactly right. And Stephanie, I might jump in here and just say a little bit more about, hey, why does it work that way? And so, let's say you and I are both training on one level in Hawkeye, and let's say we both have the same target of 3 stars. And let's say when you do that level, you get 4 stars right off the bat. Well, that tells the personal trainer, hey, Stephanie's great at this level. She doesn't need to keep repeating it. We want to introduce her to some higher, more challenging levels. On the other hand, maybe I do that level and I only get 2 stars. Well, I do kind of need to practice more on that, don't I? Right? You're like the kid who's jumping ahead of grade, and I'm like the kid who's right on target. I need to keep practicing a little bit. And when I do eventually get to that star threshold, 3 stars, well, then I'll go on to the next level just like you. But what BrainHQ, what the personal trainer wants to do is make sure that each of us get exactly what we need. And in this case, you needed to move on faster to more challenging levels, and I needed to keep practicing that level to tune up my brain.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it and a great example. So I would also say that Henry, don't worry if you're getting 2 stars on a level. Everybody has good training days and bad training days.
Well, and 2 stars is fine for lots of people who are working on sharpening their brains. We all want to have exactly the right level of challenge for our brain, and that's what the personal trainer is designed to do.
Exactly. So what happens when you have trained with levels within a particular exercise? A lot of times, what can happen is an exercise can be retired. So if you've retired a certain number of levels within an exercise, so the personal trainer will remove that exercise from your active set of exercises, and then it will replace it with a different exercise. So by default, this is going to happen after you retire 10 levels in an exercise. So taking a step back, big picture, just to sort of summarize everything so far. Each time you do your personal trainer, each session, you're going to get 6 exercises. The personal trainer will pick a level from each exercise. It might be a repeated level if maybe you didn't reach your performance goal, or it might be a new level if you did beat your performance goal last time. Then after you retire 10 levels in an exercise, the personal trainer is then going to retire that exercise and then add a new one into the rotation for you. All right, I'm actually going to go ahead and punt this over to Henry for performance goals and trainer settings, since this is getting a little technical here. And I know that's where Henry really shows his stride.
So we do want to show you a little bit about how these things can be customized if you want to customize it. Now, let me start off by saying that the default settings for the personal trainer are great. You really don't need to choose to customize them at all. But if you do want to, here's how you do that. As Stephanie's showing us, you go to your profile page, as she's done, and you scroll right down, and you can see that there's 2 things that you can do here. You can specify the training challenge, and you can specify the training depth. So training challenge, what does that mean? Well, remember when Stephanie was talking about how many stars do you have to earn on a single level in order to retire that level and move on? Well, that's the training challenge setting. And as you can see here, Stephanie is right now set to a medium challenge. And that means that if she gets 3 stars or more on any one level, the personal trainer decides, hey, that's good enough. I'm going to retire the level and give her a new level. And we call that a medium level of challenge. Now, everyone has a different brain. BrainHQ assigns a default of 3 stars and a medium pretty much by default. But you might decide you want more challenge. You might decide, hey, I'm a 4-star person. I want to really make sure that I'm as good as 4 stars on every level before I move on. And if you wanted to do that, as Stephanie's showing, you would click move it to hard there. Now, if you get 3 stars on a level, well, that's not quite good enough for you. BrainHQ's then the personal trainer is going to bring that level back to you until you show it you've practiced enough to get 4 stars. And that's great for someone who really wants to push their brain. On the other hand, maybe you're getting stuck on these levels for a little while. You're consistently getting 2 stars, but you feel like, okay, that's fine. I have a brain that I'm just trying to push a bit in this way. Maybe I'm recovering from an injury or struggling in some way, but I still want to move through the levels. Well, then click on the easy setting. And that means as long as you earn 2 stars on a level, you're going to move on to the next one the next time. And like Stephanie said, I want to emphasize that all of these choices are fine. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking, oh, I shouldn't choose easy because that's not tough enough. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking the only way to do BrainHQ is on the expert setting. Every single person on this call, including me and Stephanie, has a different brain. And it's important to pick the right challenge level for you. So start at medium. If you'd like to work a little harder, put it at hard. If you find you're not moving through the exercise levels quickly enough, put it at easy. That's always fine. Now, the other way you can customize your setting, and I'm going to mention this, but we don't really recommend that you do this very often, but just so you know, is you can change the training depth session. And as Stephanie mentioned, the personal trainer will keep bringing back an exercise, introducing new levels each time, but you'll keep getting an exercise, like, for example, Hawkeye, until you've retired or passed 10 levels in Hawkeye. Now, maybe you'd like to go on a grand tour of the exercises a little bit more quickly. Well, you would set that breadth depth setting to something a little bit more on the breadth side. That means that the personal trainer is going to retire that exercise after you've completed 4 levels or 6 levels. So you'll move through the exercises more quickly, but you're not going to get as deep into the training content in each one. On the other hand, you might say, you know what, I really want to push my brain deep into this training content. And so I actually want to increase the depth setting to a higher number. And that means you'll stay in each exercise, for example, Hawkeye, until you've retired or passed 14 levels or 16 levels. And that's also a great way to do training. Now, again, I generally recommend you just leave it on the default setting right there in the middle, which is 10. But I thought it was worth explaining to you in terms of how the personal trainer works, because you have maybe now a deeper understanding of how and when the personal trainer chooses to retire one exercise and introduce the next exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a common question that we actually get in customer support as well is, how can I move through the exercises a little bit more quickly? Maybe, the personal trainer exercises are getting a little stale. You wanted to add some variation to your training schedule. Switching this over towards the breadth side rather than the depth side is a great way to sort of tweak that setting for yourself. Now, the other thing is that if you do make any trainer settings or settings changes, you want to be sure that you click the save button at the bottom. Otherwise, it's going to go back to the defaults. Now, while we're here on the profile page, we can also talk about this last option here called the focus. So focuses are ways that you can program the personal trainer to load up specific exercises. So we have standard focuses, we have specialized focuses, and then we also have an option called a custom focus, which we'll get to shortly. So standard focuses, the personal trainer focus is the default setting that includes all of the exercises in BrainHQ. So that's what you saw me training with earlier. That's what we recommend for most people. Now the optimized schedule with Daily Spark is going to be the same as your regular personal trainer, except it's going to include the Daily Spark exercise first in your schedule lineup for the day. Now, under that, we have specialized focuses. So specialized focuses are groupings of exercises that our team of scientists have put together to help train a specific skill set. So let's, for example, say that we wanted to learn more about this focus called Focus on Auditory Processing. We could go ahead and click that. We have some background information about the focus itself. We can see what it targets. We can see which exercises are included in this focus. And then we can also see the scientists and the collaborators and the researchers that worked on the exercises associated with this focus. So after reviewing that information, if that all looks good, you come up to the top of the screen and hit that arrow button to go ahead and load it into the personal trainer. And now we can see that our focus is set to focus on auditory processing. Now, the last thing that you can do, if you click on the focus option again, is the custom focus down here. So you can actually build your own training program from scratch by using a custom focus. So let's go ahead and click that just for an example here. So these are currently the active exercises that are in the personal trainer right now. To disable an exercise, you can go ahead and click the little X button that will go ahead and gray it out. Now, if there is an exercise that you want to include, Henry, name 3 exercises.
Well, my favorite exercise is eye for detail.
There we go.
And the exercise that I also really like and find very challenging is right turn.
Ooh, that's a fun one. Right turn.
And then I've actually been doing a lot of work on fine tuning recently. So let's add that one.
Fine tuning. All right. And then let's see. I'm always a sucker for double decision. There's just so much good science behind it. It never hurts to have that in your training schedule. I really like here. Auditory processing is something that as I'm getting older, I'm noticing that it's starting to taper off. So it's good to get a little bit of auditory processing practice in there. And then let's also throw in sound sweeps for good measure. So for example, Henry and I just created this custom focus for ourselves. Now, if we wanted to reorder the exercises, we can do that by clicking the top of each of those exercise names. So if we want eye for detail to come first, like that, shoots it right to the top. Now, if you add more than 6 exercises, what'll happen is exercises at the top of the list are going to occur earlier in your training, and then ones more towards the bottom of the list will get rotated in as some of those previous ones are mastered. The last thing that you can do here is you can name that focus. So we can say Henry and Steph focus, and then load it into the trainer by clicking this big button up here. And then we have all of those exercises queued up for us in our own custom focus that we just created. So I think that's going to hit on pretty much everything about the personal trainer that I wanted to touch on. But Henry, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on before we move to Q&A?
I probably just wanted to emphasize that we built the personal trainer because I think it's really important that everyone just has an easy way to use BrainHQ in the way that the scientists here thought was best. And we really do recommend that everyone certainly start with the personal trainer, and most people should really continue with the personal trainer over time. Now, the individual exercises, which we're not talking about today, but we'll talk about at some future point, I'm sure. Hey, they're great if you have a particular exercise that you love, you just want to push yourself further on it, you want to make some progress on it, that's great. But the personal trainer, all the science behind it is designed to give you the right exercises at the right time, just as been done in many of the clinical trials that support the efficacy of BrainHQ. So we've put a lot of effort into really making sure we've replicated that science and made it easy to use. So we do recommend it for most people who are going through BrainHQ. And with that, maybe we should look at some questions. What do you think, Stephanie?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So here's one that we actually get quite a lot, and I'd be excited to hear your answer for this. But we've already touched on why the personal trainer will sometimes repeat levels, but what happens when you get the same level over and over and over and over again? Can you speak a little bit to that sort of situation?
Yeah, so usually if you're seeing the same level several times, several sessions in a row, you look at your screen and you see that repeated level there, and it's one that you know already. That's usually because you haven't hit your star target yet on that level. So let's say your star target is 3 and you're just consistently getting 2 stars on that level. Of course, the way BrainHQ interprets that is, well, hey, the person's goal is to get 3 stars on each level. They've tried 3 or 4 sessions and only gotten 2 stars, but the personal trainer wants to bring that level back because it thinks that if you practice some more, you will eventually get to 3 stars on that. So, what we'd recommend is, well, keep trying for a while, just like anything you're practicing on, whether it's a new language or a new sport or any new skill that you're learning, practice does eventually get you better at it. So I encourage people to keep repeating that level for a period of time and see if you can get to that star target. But if you're really stuck, right, maybe you've done 6 or 7 or 8 sessions of BrainHQ and that level just keeps coming back, there's a few things you can do. First of all, not everyone knows this, Stephanie, but we should show them. You can actually skip ahead in the personal trainer.
Yeah.
So for example, on Stephanie's schedule, even though it says here is the next one, and that's what she'll get, if she doesn't want to do here, maybe that's the level she's been stuck at for a little while, go ahead and click on fine tuning, Stephanie.
Boop.
That'll actually just jump her ahead right there. So if you've been stuck on a level for a while, hey, try taking a break for a couple of days and just skipping it. That's A-okay with us. That's why we built the skip functionality. And then try coming back to it when the personal trainer suggests, and maybe your brain is caught up and is ready to get 3 stars at that point. If you've really been stuck and that hasn't worked, there are a few things that you can do to get you past it. First of all, you can temporarily lower your star target. So Stephanie, why don't you go to your profile for a moment?
Yeah, of course. I kind of went through this pretty quickly, but the way that you can navigate to those trainer settings is click your name in the top right corner, click on profile, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, you have your trainer settings here.
Perfectly. Now you're already set on easy, which is 2 stars. You're probably not going to get stuck on any levels, but someone who's been stuck on a level, typically what happened is that they have their training challenge there set to expert or hard or sometimes medium. And you know what? Just take it down to easy for a couple of sessions. You'll get past the level that you're stuck at, and then you can come back here and you can kick it back up again to your usual level. So that's a great recommendation. And again, no problem, no shame in lowering the difficulty level for a couple of days to get past the sticky part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally, if the exercise is just driving you bananas and you just never want to see the here exercise again, you can set up a custom focus the way Stephanie showed you. We won't go through that demo again. If you don't remember what she showed you, no problem. Just give us a call or send us a note. We'll help you set up a custom focus and we'll just get rid of that particular exercise for you for a while and you can come back to it later. So first of all, keep going on it for a while. Second of all, change your training challenge. Third of all, work with us and we'll set up a custom focus to get rid of it for you.
Yep.
Great question.
Yeah, and that actually addresses a question that we got from Dale. Dale is recovering from a stroke and is unable to do a couple of the exercises, so he wanted to know how to eliminate them. Going through the custom focus and then removing those exercises from the active set of exercises is a great way to navigate around those exercises in the personal trainer.
That's fantastic. And, Stephanie, I'm compelled to add as a scientist, I'd like to let people know that there was a beautiful study that was published last year looking at freeze frame in particular in people who had suffered strokes. And one of the interesting things about freeze frame, if you've played it, is it's an exercise that focuses on improving your attention, but it actually, it occurs over your entire visual field. Even if you have somewhat limited vision, it's an exercise that most people can learn how to do. And it was shown to be quite helpful at improving attention and visual performance, specifically in people with stroke in a study last year. If you'd like any help setting that up, again, just contact us at our support group. But I thought I'd mention that because of the way that question came up. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stephanie, I've seen a couple questions here that I think we might answer a little bit at once. We have a number of people here, of course, who are used to using BrainHQ on their iPad or on their iPhone or on their Android tablet. And I see them asking, hey, this doesn't look like what I see on my phone. Does it work the same way, or is this totally different on my mobile device? Do you want to say a few words about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it definitely does work the same on your mobile device as it does on the web version of BrainHQ. So what'll happen is, as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, after you're done training with each of those levels within BrainHQ, that information gets synced up relatively quickly, and then that way, if you wanted to do some sort of cross-play, like start your training day on your mobile device and then maybe switch over to computer later in the day, you're still going to be able to pick up your training where you left off, and all of that information syncs up.
That's right. But it does look different. And I'll just call out a few things. If you're used to doing BrainHQ on your tablet, you're probably used to holding it sideways, kind of like a TV screen. And if you do that for reasons that are left best known to Apple, you'll see exactly the screen. It just laid out in the opposite direction. So that big button that shows start will be on the left instead of the right. And all of the exercises the personal trainer has picked out will lay out behind it. So don't let that left-right flip throw you. It's still working exactly the same under the hood. Yep. And then if you're using your phone, you might be used to holding up your phone vertically. And in that case, you're going to see that big circle with the next exercise at the top. And you'll see all those exercises that come next trailing out underneath it like a little tail. So again, don't get thrown because it looks a little bit differently. Under the hood, it's doing exactly the same thing to add new exercises, new levels, and to retire them, precisely as Stephanie has laid out.
Yeah, when in doubt, when doing the personal trainer or really just trying to navigate the website, look for a big button or look for something that says start or has like that little arrow next to it. That's usually a good indicator of where you should be going to next.
Super.
All right, I have a couple of people asking where the button for the personal trainer is, and I just want to review that very briefly. So when you are logged into BrainHQ, you're going to end up on this dashboard. This is our sort of main landing page, as we sometimes call it. The personal trainer is always going to be located via this big yellow button here. Right now, it says use personal trainer, Henry plus Steph Focus, because that's the custom focus that we created. But for you, it might have the optimized schedule for you. It might have the focus that you have loaded in there. So it depends on what your trainer settings are, but it's always going to be this big yellow button there.
That's great. There's a couple questions here we might tackle here that I see coming up, Stephanie. Here's someone who says, hey, for weeks, my sessions with the personal trainer have been repeating a small number of exercises. And why is that? What happened to the variety I used to get? Well, there could be a couple things going on here. So first of all, hopefully your trainer is still set on the default kind of settings like Stephanie is. And when you open up the screen on the web or maybe on your phone, you should always see that there's 6 exercises that are laid out here. You might remember Stephanie saying, hey, the personal trainer looks at all the exercises you have. There's about 29 exercises in BrainHQ, and it takes 6 of them as in the active set. And the personal trainer does want to keep repeating those 6 exercises, again, with new levels from time to time, but the same 6 exercises. It's going to keep those for a while. And it does that because, again, practice makes perfect. If you were to be skipping across all 29 exercises, you might never practice on any one exercise enough to really change your brain and get good at it. Now, if the question is coming because you're not seeing that you have 6 exercises that are different, if you're only seeing that you have 1 or 2, well, you should give us a call and we can look at your account specifically with you. Maybe somehow a custom focus has been set up that has a fewer number of exercises in that. And if you've set up that custom focus by accident or something, hey, give us a call. We're happy to look at your account kind of with you and get you back into something that works for you. So to sum up, you should generally see 6 exercises. That gives you a pretty good variety. The reason we pick 6 is we want you to practice and really rewire your brain before you start doing additional and new exercises. If you see a smaller number, give us a call. We'll make sure you're set up correctly.
Yeah, great answer for that. Margaret is asking how many levels are there and is it the same for each exercise? So last time I counted, there were over 770 levels within BrainHQ. It's like some absurd amount, but it just means that there's never, you're never left wanting more. There's always more training to be done. So each exercise within BrainHQ doesn't have a set number of levels. It varies from exercise to exercise. For example, if we wanted to view, we talked about Hawkeye, for example. If we wanted to view
That's
Hawkeye,
got a lot of levels.
it's got a lot of levels. We have 10 whole stages of Hawkeye. So stage 1 has 2 levels, stage 2 has 6 levels, and the rest of them, I think, also have 6 levels. So tons of levels within Hawkeye. But if we were to look at freeze frame, for example, I think that has fewer stages and levels. So we have 7 stages that time, and the grids are arranged a little bit differently. So yeah, each exercise is going to have a different number of levels. And that's going to be based on the different stimuli and how those can be altered within each stage grouping.
Super. Here's someone with a pretty interesting question. This person's been paying very careful attention, Stephanie. They ask, how come the start exercise requires only 5 stars, but all the other exercises require 10 stars? Now, this is a person who's been paying very careful attention. Do you mind if I take a swing at this?
I'm actually going to go ahead and hand that back to you because I'm not.
Yeah, no, I would love to. Here's what, do you mind doing this? Go to the focus and let's select a new focus here for a minute.
Sure.
If you're seeing this, then you are in the focus called Optimize Schedule with Daily Spark. Do you mind selecting that focus for us, Stephanie?
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
So what this person is referring to is the start exercise, perfectly good name for it. We typically call it the Daily Spark. If you've chosen this focus, the Optimize Schedule with Daily Spark, then it's going to give you what we call the Daily Spark exercise to start with each day. The Daily Spark is meant to be just a quick warm-up. And that's why it only requires 5 cumulative stars to finish it, rather than all the normal exercise, which require 10 cumulative stars, as Stephanie talked about. What that means is you get through the Daily Spark just a little bit faster and do that warm-up. So that's the answer to your question, and I congratulate you on noticing that carefully. If you don't feel like you need or want the Daily Spark in your schedule anymore, no problem. Just go click on the focus, and Stephanie, do you mind? And then instead of picking the Optimize Schedule with Daily Spark, just click on the Optimize Schedule for you. This is still going to get you through all 29 exercises, but each day you'll start with a regular exercise and you'll have to earn 10 stars to be done with that level and then go on to the next one. Both ways are fine ways to training. We've just found that some number of people like to start off with a little warm up. If that's right for you, fantastic. If it's not, swap your focus just like we showed you. Great question.
And that was a great catch there. I hadn't really put 2 and 2 together, but yeah, it makes sense because you only train through the Daily Spark once.
That's exactly right. Do you have another question there you like, or should I pick one out for us?
Is there any way to add the Daily Spark to a customized or specialized focus? Great question. At this time, I don't think there is a way to do that. And Henry, correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope, that's exactly right. The Daily Spark is just available for the overall optimized schedule, at least at this time.
Yeah, so if you wanted to do the Daily Spark before you got into your main training session, you can switch back over to the optimized schedule with Daily Spark, do the Daily Spark exercise, and then go back to your focus and switch it to your custom focus or the specialized focus. It's a little clunky, but if you wanted to get the Daily Spark as a nice little warm up, that would be probably the way to do it.
Perfect. Here's an interesting question, and I want to call this out, not because we're going to be able to resolve it on the line today, but I'd like this person to get in specific touch with us.
Sure.
This person says, each session, I usually do about 3 exercises before the personal trainer decides my session is done. So that makes perfect sense. And let me just say why, and then I'll go on to the question. Probably the personal trainer wants you to finish about 8 levels before the session is done, as Stephanie walked us through. And often the way you're going to finish those levels is you're going to do 2 or 3 levels, repetitions for each exercise. And that's going to get you to 6 or 8 or eventually 9 levels, exactly as Stephanie said, and you'll be done. But the question this person asks is they say, well, but at every session, my exercises are set up to start on the same exercise. Now, that actually seems a little bit odd to me, Stephanie, and that's why I'd like this person to reach out to you and our support team and have a specific look at her schedule. The way the personal trainer should be working is, like we said, it has 6 exercises in the active set. And once you do, let's say you finish 3 today, then tomorrow it should probably give you the next 3, so to speak. And then you kind of walk through them that way. If you're getting the same 3 to start with every single time you log into the personal trainer, and if this is happening to you because you asked this question, or maybe it's happening to you and you didn't ask the question, either way, give us a ring. We'd like to check in on the settings at your personal trainer and make sure that it's set up rightly for you, because we do want people to get variety within the 6 exercises as they go through. And Stephanie, I think at the end of this webinar, you'll be presenting some contact information so everyone can get in touch with us. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So some of these questions, Stephanie and I will take and answer them because we can answer them for everyone. But a few of them I want to call out because it would be a good idea to call us. And we want to make sure that we make it work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such an important part of BrainHQ as a whole is, we love getting feedback from our users. And if there's anything that isn't, necessarily made clear or we could be doing better, like we want to know about it. Or if, something is maybe not working as intended, like, please let us know. We're happy to help. We want to see what's going on and help you out.
Yep. And I just saw an immediate question that relates to what's on the screen. So I'm going to call this out. Someone says, you keep saying 6 exercises, but I see 8 on the screen. Do you want to, why don't you swap back to the regular optimized schedule without the daily spark? And we can walk through the answer to this question. Do you want to tackle it, Stephanie, or should I?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take a swing at it first. The personal trainer, like Henry and I have been referring to, has picked 6 exercises in what we call the active set of exercises. And then after those 6 exercises, it's going to start to repeat those 6 exercises again. So for example, for me, this second session that it wants me to do, we have target trackers first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then it starts to repeat target tracker, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So it's showing more just because my screen is actually just wide enough to fit more icons on the personal trainer schedule screen. But if your screen has been resized, you may not see all 6 at a time. There are still going to be 6 exercises there in the active set, but it's going to be how many you see is dependent on your actual screen dimensions there.
That's exactly right. And, Stephanie, just to build on that, it shows a long list of these because we don't know necessarily how many levels you'd like to complete in your session today. As a previous person who asked a question mentioned, if your schedule is set to 24 levels per week, that means that each time you sit down at the personal trainer, it's going to give you 8 because it thinks you, on the average, want to train 3 times per week. And if your goal is 8 levels, you're probably going to finish somewhere between 2 and 4 of these exercises. So if you started training and you had a great day, you got 5 stars on every level, you'd probably complete 4 of these exercises. If you had a slightly worse day, you might complete just 2 of them. But if your goal was set to 48 levels per week or 100 levels per week, well, then in fact, you would actually work through quite a few of these exercises, and you might even actually wrap around and have started with target tracker and end on a next level of target tracker. That's totally fine. Really, all we're trying to show here in the personal trainer is, hey, what is the schedule of exercises you'd receive as you keep going? How deep you get into that schedule is totally determined by how many levels you're choosing to complete with your weekly goal in that way.
Yeah, great question and great answer there. Sharon wanted to go over how to get back to the default settings for the personal trainer, and I'm happy to show that off briefly. So if you go up to your name in the top right corner and then click on profile from this little drop down menu, We're going to scroll to the bottom to the personal trainer settings. Now the default settings, you're going to be at medium, and then breath is going to be 5 of these colorful dots and then 5 of the gray dots. And then when you're done making changes, you can go ahead and click save, and then that'll set you back to default. All right, let's see.
We have tons of great questions here. What shall we tackle next? Here's someone who wants to know, how are the stars calculated? And that might be worth saying a word or two about, because it's pretty relevant to how the personal trainer works.
Sure.
So the way the stars are calculated is each time that you do a training level, we know exactly, of course, how well you did on that level. And we can compare how well you did on that level to the performance of literally every single other person who's ever done that level in BrainHQ. And we can know, hey, are you about an average? Are you maybe better than a lot of people? Or maybe you're not as good as a lot of people who've done this. And we turn that into a star count. And if you're about average, you're going to get around 3 stars on the exercise. And if you're doing super well, you're going to get 5. And you're going to get 1 or 2 stars if maybe the exercise is unfamiliar to you, or whether this is an exercise where, hey, this is an area where your brain could really work on it to get better. So that's how we calculate the stars. We compare how you did compared to other people who did it. Now, again, as Stephanie and I have said before, and I'm going to keep saying every time, as a scientist who's been involved in BrainHQ, I don't want anyone to walk away feeling bad because they got 1 or 2 stars. I'll tell you right now, there are levels in BrainHQ and exercises where I get 1 or 2 stars, and I helped build these exercises.
Yeah, for sure. Same.
And that's because everyone's brain is different, and all of our brains are better at some things and maybe not quite as good as something else. And so that's why when that brings me back to those repeated levels, I just try and push my way through them, because I know that if I keep practicing at them, well, I'm going to sharpen my brain in those directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I will say, for those of you that maybe are a little more math inclined or math curious about how stars are calculated, if you wanted to go a little bit more, one, we did a webinar on deep dive on progress recently. You can find that on our YouTube channel if you want to see a replay of that. But we also have in our guide section a whole part of an article dedicated to how BrainHQ calculates stars. So for those of you that are math inclined, want to get into the nitty gritty, this may be something that you are interested in finding and reading next time you have a free moment about that. So all you need to do is go to support.brainhq.com, and then you can search for stars. And we have a whole section, like I said, on how BrainHQ calculates those stars.
Super. And, here's another good iPhone, iPad, or Android question for us. Someone has asked us, hey, how do I get to my profile exactly if I'm on the app? And once I'm there, how would I set a custom focus? Do you know that off the top of your head, Stephanie, or shall I take a quick look at my iPhone and remind us how this works?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of logging into BrainHQ on my phone right now, just so that way I can. It's gonna be a little janky because I'm gonna have to hold it up to the screen there.
I think we could just sort of say it in a few words.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
You can get to the profile on your mobile device. If you look in the upper right, there's 3 little lines, kind of like a little menu bar. And if you click on that, that will actually open up your profile, and it will let you do a few normal things like change your password. But in that section, you're also going to see set your custom focus. So you can go ahead and do that directly from the mobile app as well. So again, all that functionality is available in the mobile app. You just have to click that little, sometimes that's called a hamburger menu. Looks like 3 little bars in order to do it. It's in the upper right of your phone, and then scroll down to set your focus or various other things like that. Great question, but we really want to make sure the iPhone app works for everyone as well. So.
And I will say, Henry's coming from an iPhone, I'm coming from an Android, and it all functions the same way. So we have the little hamburger icon, you tap on that, and then you have the focus option is going to be one of the first options there.
Great. Good question. Good question. Let's see. What else shall we tackle from these questions that are coming in? Stephanie, do you want to give a run at?
Jeanette has a good question. I'm not going to be able to train every day. How does that work? That's fine. So actually, the personal trainer kind of figures that people are going to be training, 3 times a week. So not every day necessarily. And so the personal trainer is going to, create that schedule for you each time you sit down to do your training. You train for as long as you want or in order to complete that session. And then, come back to BrainHQ when you're ready, and then the personal trainer will have you pick up your schedule right where you had previously left off. It's going to save your place in that schedule of exercises for you.
Super. That's fantastic. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here to see some of these questions that have come in a little bit more recently. Let's see.
Kathleen has an interesting question. How do you set the time limit per session? And I think Kathleen is referring to the weekly goal that we can set.
Oh.
Yeah, so great question. So there are a couple of ways to do that. So here on your dashboard, if you click on this progress widget, you can see your levels trained this month. But if you want to go ahead and change that, you can go to your profile page, or more specifically, you can go ahead and click goals from that drop-down menu. And you get this little pop-up, and then you can change how many levels per week or roughly how much time per session you want to go ahead and train with. So I have the default currently set. My trainer sessions take about 20 minutes. That's going to be an hour a week, 3 sessions per week. And that's going to be a total of 24 levels. So each session I'm looking at 8 exercises or not 8 exercises, 8 levels that I'm training with. So if I wanted to increase that, I could hit the plus button and increase that. Let's say I want to go an hour and a half instead. I'm doing pretty good. Or, maybe 24 is a little too high and I want to, start off easy. Let's bring it down to 16, train for 40 minutes a week instead. So whenever you want to make those changes, you can do that pretty easily. And then to save them, you just hit that little arrow there. All right, great question.
Great. Here's another pretty interesting one. Again, this is someone who's been thinking about this very carefully. They say, hey, if I have a little bit more time to do a few exercises on a given day, and I've already done my regular set on the personal trainer, does that interfere with the trainer's plan? Or can I go ahead and do a few more when I have some spare time? And so I think what this person is talking about is saying, hey, I finished my personal trainer session. So first of all, congratulations, but I got a little bit more time. If I go and pick individual exercises, right? Maybe I really love fine tuning like Henry, and I just want to keep working on those bows and does. Is that okay to go ahead and pick that individual exercise? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So if you finish a personal trainer session and then you go pick a new exercise, even one that wasn't part of the personal trainer, and you do a bunch of training, the next time you start the personal trainer, like Stephanie said, it looks back on everything you've done and it creates the right set of exercises and levels for you. Now, if you've done an exercise that's not part of the current active set, that's not going to matter very much because it's not part of the first active set. But when you eventually have that exercise added to your personal trainer, the personal trainer will know which levels you've already done and how well you've done in them. So it'll skip you ahead to the correct level. On the other hand, if you choose to do practice on an individual exercise from an exercise that is in the active set, well, that's fine too. When you do your personal trainer session tomorrow, it might advance you a level or two because you already worked on that. And that's all great. So the personal trainer is very smart that way. And I think actually to highlight it, this is a great way to think about using the individual exercises. Is you've done with your personal trainer set for the day, you don't really feel like starting a new personal trainer set because maybe you don't have that amount of time ahead of you, but you got 5 or 10 minutes. Why not work on an exercise you like? That's a great way to combine using the personal trainer and the individual exercises in that way. So great suggestion.
Yeah. We have an interesting question here. Sometimes I feel that the level was too easy by accident and I want to stay in that level, but I got the stars in order to move on, but I want to stay at the lower level. What do I do? So that is actually a pretty common question, especially for new users and also BrainHQ users who took a break and are now coming back to BrainHQ, because the personal trainer is going to pick you up right where you had left off and not necessarily take that break into account in the way that you might like. So there are a couple of different ways that you can sort of tweak that. The first is that if there's a specific exercise that you want to work on, you can go and hand pick levels. The other thing is that if the personal trainer is picking out exercises for you and those exercises are going a little too fast for you, it's going to sound a little counterintuitive, but follow me here. Get a couple questions wrong on purpose when you're training with exercises in BrainHQ. All of the exercises in BrainHQ are adaptive. So if you are training, if you're having a good training day and you're training at a really high level, then the exercise is going to get more fast, more complicated in order to increase that challenge. But if you're having a bad training day, or if you're coming back to BrainHQ after a break and you're not quite up to speed yet, get questions wrong on purpose. That will tell the exercise to slow down or, reduce the stimuli in some way. So that way you're better able to jump back in at a level that's more appropriate for you at that time. And then, once you're able to start responding accurately at that rate, then it'll start to work you up from that current level. So those would be my recommendations. Henry, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's perfect, Stephanie. You hit the nail right on the head.
Awesome.
Here's a person who asks a great question, very thoughtful again. Hey, Stephanie, you and I have talked about how an exercise gets retired, right? Yeah. An exercise gets retired once you pass 10 levels in it at your particular star target threshold. What happens to that exercise? You just showed me Hawkeye. It's got 70 levels in it. I finished 10. We retired Hawkeye. Does it ever come back? Do you want to take that one or should I?
Yeah. So it will come back eventually. What happens is the personal trainer is going to start working through all of the exercises it's going to kind of go wide rather than going tall necessarily, which is kind of a funny thing to say. It's a game mechanic that I'm familiar with in a card game that I play. But basically, the personal trainer is going to want to give you a wide rotation of exercises over time, and then have you come back to those exercises from the original active set and then make your way up. So you're kind of moving laterally across exercises before moving to more advanced exercises and then moving laterally again, as I understand it.
That's exactly right. So there's 29 or so exercises in BrainHQ. If you just complete the personal trainer with the default settings, you're going to pass 10 levels in the first exercise. For example, Hawkeye, that exercise is going to be retired and a new exercise will be added. And you'll just keep marching through like that until you've done 10 levels in all 29 exercises. And once you retire that 29th exercise, well, it's going to bring you back to the first one again, in this example, Hawkeye, and you're going to get the next 10 levels in Hawkeye. And so you'll just keep wrapping and wrapping and wrapping around like that. And in fact, just to say it, for those of you who are really training a lot, once you've completed all of the levels at your star target threshold, the personal trainer will actually automatically increase your star target threshold by 1 star, and then you'll go through the levels at the new star target threshold to make sure that you keep improving your performance. And now, if you're just starting BrainHQ, you might think, well, gosh, how am I ever going to get to that? That's a lot of brain training. But I will tell you, we have a lot of users, and maybe some of you are on this call today, who have in fact wrapped through the personal trainer once or twice and just keep upping their star threshold in that way. So it will keep giving you the right training for as long as you are willing to and happy to keep pushing your brain forward in this way.
Yeah. I will say I have talked to, in my 8 years working at Posit Science, I think I have talked to 3 people that have completed every level of BrainHQ and have gotten 5 stars on every level. Doesn't happen often, but it is possible, folks. But it took them many years to do it. So like I said earlier, you're never going to run out of content with BrainHQ there.
Stephanie, I've noticed, just to remind us how many kinds of mobile devices are out there. I've noticed a couple people who've said, okay, you showed us how to find the profile on the web, so that's great. You showed us how to find the profile on my phone, so that's great, but I have an iPad. How do I find the profile on my iPad? And how do I select my custom focus? And don't worry, I've already looked, Stephanie. You don't have to run around looking for an iPad. On your iPad, you're going to see a little person icon kind of in the upper left corner. If you're holding your iPad, again, kind of sideways, so it's wider than it is tall, you're going to see in the upper left a little person icon. That's how you get to your profile. Just touch that. You can do all the regular profile stuff. Actually, I said upper left, but it's actually upper right. My apologies. You can do all the regular profile stuff there. You can change your email address. And then most importantly for this call, you can change your custom focus there as well. So Stephanie, I'm looking at the clock. We just have 1 or 2 minutes left. Do you think there's one or two other sort of broad cutting questions we should try and answer there? Do you have a favorite and something that's come up here?
So the one that I'm seeing a lot of now that we're starting to wind down is how do we get in contact with customer support? And I'm so glad you all are asking. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put the contact slide up on screen now. So we have support@brainhq.com is our support address. If you have any follow-up questions that maybe we didn't get an opportunity to answer today, go ahead and email us there. You can also find answers to common questions by going to our support site. That's support.brainhq.com. You can also find that by clicking the help button anywhere on the BrainHQ website, and that'll take you there. And for those of you asking about the recording for this webinar is going to be up on YouTube sometime next week. You can find our channel at youtube.com/BrainHQ. Other than that, Henry, you want to say a couple closing words?
Sure. We certainly got to as many questions as we could, and we tried to pick the questions a lot of people were answering. If we didn't get to your question live, like Stephanie said, just send us to it at support@brainhq.com. We're always happy to have people reach out and answer their questions about BrainHQ. And other than that, thanks for joining. The personal trainer is a great feature to help make sure you're doing BrainHQ the way the scientists designed. I'm glad there's so much interest from people in how it works and getting it to work correctly. And I'll leave you with happy brain training. Log into BrainHQ and do some training today. Ask us any questions, and hopefully we will see you next month for our next Brain Health Academy, which I believe is language in the brain. Do I have that right?
Language in the brain, and I think that's coming up in 3 weeks, something like that.
Okay.
So stay tuned for that. We are going to be sending out an invitation email for that pretty shortly.
Wonderful. Stephanie, it's a pleasure co-hosting with you as always. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you, Henry, for taking the time. And thank you, everybody in the audience, for taking the time to learn more about BrainHQ and the personal trainer today. Like we said, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. And other than that, I hope you all are having a great day and happy brain training.